Welcome to Destination Beer. We are doing another Beers With segment, and we are in Denver. This is the Craft Brewers Conference happening right now, and taking advantage of a wonderful opportunity to enjoy the food and the beer scene here. We are actually at the Kitchen Denver right now, and I am joined by one of my favorite people, especially one of my favorite beer people in the whole world, Miss Julia Herz from the Craft Brewers Association, the Craft Beer Program Director.
Yep.
So, Julia, how you doing?
Hi, Chris. It's great to be here in Denver. The kitchen, love it. Nice choice.
Right.
And happy to see you.
Yeah, I'm having a great time. Craft Brewers Conference is just rolling. There's so many great people here. There's great beers here, great learning. I mean, it's such an amazing time to be here. So, a lot of great things going on. We, of course, are drinking. This is the Beers With segment. So, let's talk about what we're drinking. And we chose the same thing. What are we drinking?
Little Pliny.
Pliny the Elder.
Just great. You don't see a keg of this sitting around every day, and to have it in Colorado is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, well, we don't unfortunately get Russian River beers in Texas, so anytime I enter a market where I can find them, I definitely take advantage. Obviously, you know a lot about this beer. This beer has basically got a cult following. Yeah. Give us some insight why you think that's so.
Well, I mean, you could talk about just this one specific beer, or you could talk about other beers that also have cult followings that are made by craft brewers in the U.S. I mean, the list goes on and on now of people seeking out these gems. And I think the point is that small producers aren't making things in mass. This is a coveted beer to get, and when you get it, you go for it. And when you don't, when you can't find it, if you are seeking it out, you might get lucky in another market. So the point is these little gems are available in different pockets of the country, and they're to be appreciated when you have them, and when you don't, drink as in Rome and enjoy something else.
And that's a fair point because, down in Texas, we have our gems. You've got various breweries like St. Arnold's that put out Divine Reserve. You've got Carbach that does the Fun series. You have Freetail that does La Muerte. And those are the gems there. And, of course, you go up north, you've got, the Hop Slams and the Dark Lords.
Right.
So it's kind of you're right. It's kind of cool to look at what craft breweries are doing in a whole. And speaking about craft breweries, we've been learning a lot, in this week about how great craft beer is doing right now. The growth, we're up to 8% of the market when it was 6% a couple of years ago. And the decline of beer overall is still happening. What's happening with craft beer?
Well, I think craft beer and the U.S. beer scene is putting beer on the map again for our country. And we now are the largest destination for beer because we finally had that cultural shift. And that cultural shift, to me, is a localization of beer movement. So you've got innovation. You've got expansive of styles. I mean, we wouldn't be sitting here 10 years ago discussing this IPA. So innovation has brought new beer styles and just new interest to the beer category. I love to say no longer does a light American lager satisfy every beer lover's beer occasion. The market is shrinking a little bit in barrelage for the large brewers. They're paying attention, changing their game and evolving, which is to be applauded. And the bottom line is we are now a more flavorful and diverse beer culture than we ever were, and that is going nowhere but up. So it's super exciting times to be a beer lover in the U.S.
Yeah, and that leads, of course, to so many more breweries that are opening up. We learned that there are 1,700 new breweries, craft breweries, in planning. And that's on top of the 2,800 that are actually running and producing beer around the country. 1,700, Julia?
Well, we even announced at the press conference today after the general session that as of March of this year, it's 1,800 plus in planning. And so one of the questions raised was, how many breweries is ever too many? And we will come right back and explain there's 4,000 some odd wineries in the U.S. If we had as many breweries today as we did in the late 1800s in the U.S., based on population then and now, we should be able to support 10,700 breweries. So the marketplace will decide, it's a little squeezed at retail, and they're having to change their game. But we are sitting in an establishment such as the Kitchen in Denver to actually show that you can put beer in a fine dining environment and have it on such an enjoyable level as part of our food culture. So we're going nowhere but up, and yet we're still going up because we're gone more flavorful beyond just that light American lager.
And one of the things that we've also seen today with some awards and just some of the brewers that you'll see here at CBC, women in craft beer, it's exploding with how many women are getting into the craft beer production. We're going to talk to Kyla here soon. She is the local expert for beer here at the kitchen. It's so great to see women in force in an industry that so many people would attribute to being male-driven.
I think that's awesome to hear you emulate. And I mean, I approach beer not as a woman, but as a beer lover, you know. But what you point out is true. It was recognized on stage today with Terry Ferendorf taking one of the major 3 awards that was awarded today, and for her work in the industry, as well as evolving Pink Boots as an organization. Sure, beer was a guy's drink. It was marketed as such. And again, back to light American lager, I think that was the target from many domestic and global breweries was, let's market this to males in their young 20s to early 30s, and that's who we're going after. And frankly, some of that is still going on. But what craft beer has done to me is be much less gender specific and more inclusive in just marketing it as a beverage as opposed to a gender specific one. It's all about flavor in the glass to me, and just women just as men are into flavor. So it's a no-brainer.
And I'm glad you said that, because we've seen some articles written in the last year where people were talking about, that beers that women love, and several women in the industry, several women that write, that was exactly what they came out and said. They said, we don't treat what we drink or what we eat as a woman. We do what we like. This is what we enjoy. And that leads into something you mentioned on stage, the passion of the craft brewer, the passion of the craft beer drinker, and what is involved in being in this industry and what drives you. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing to see that passion in people.
And that's what it takes. I mean, you talk about the 1,800 breweries and planning. It's not the easiest thing to do. If anyone out there listening wants to get into brewing, you should realize you're getting into the most highly taxed of highly regulated industries with many barriers to market. And the smaller you are, the harder it is. So I think it's very important to pay attention to that. And the passion is what will, bring you through. I went to a technology conference and spoke at that. And literally the focus of the conference was similarities between the technology world and the craft brewing world. And what it came down to at the end of the day, it took a whole day of sessions to really boil it down, is that in technology, and there's many exceptions, it's about money and what's going to carry the day on that side. But when you look at brewing, sure, it's about money and keeping your business going and your bucket full, but it's also about the passion. And if you're not passionate, that's going to show in your product and people won't support you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as most of you know, we've had Julia on this show quite a few times, and when you put Julia and I in the same vicinity, the conversation is going to gravitate towards food and beer, and we love, obviously, we're both passionate about what we eat, what we drink, and bringing those pairings and those flavors out. So coming up next, we are going to have Kyla join us. We're going to bring in some dishes from the kitchen, and we're going to show you guys some really amazing pairings with some really amazing American craft beers. We'll be right back.